Welcome to the Down Dog Athletics Podcast, a competitor's guide to mental health and mastery, your resource for conversations around mental health and the mindsets necessary to master every area of your life. My name is Paul Klingen, and I'm a former Division I athlete that struggled with my mental health until I started yoga, which opened me up to other practices that gave me a balanced approach to my physical and mental health. The goal of this podcast is to inspire others to do the same, train and compete like an athlete, while also having the ability to slow down and practice stillness. When you can do both, you find balance and evolve into a greater version of yourself. What up? Welcome to the Down Dog Athletics Podcast. Paul Klingen here. And right away, I want to get into something that I discovered this weekend, which was fantastic. So, had a couple birthdays, and we went to Lagunitas Brewing up in Ballard, Washington. And I'm not drinking and trying to just stay super dialed in nutritionally, training. I got a competition, High Rocks, down in LA, March 28th. And so I'm just like, all right, I'm going to make sure sleep's good. I'm going to make sure that, I'm not getting, a little too loose with everything. And the only things that they had on the menu, obviously at a brewery, are going to be beer. And then some ciders and then some fries. And then I was like, oh, whoa, what is this refreshing taster? And it was essentially a carbonated water with a little hoppy spin to it. So it was like an IPA hoppy water. And I'll just say, it was really good. I had 3, and I felt like I was having a beer, even though it was water, so it's hydrating, 0 calories, 0 carbs, 0 anything. And this podcast is 0% sponsored by it. It was just something that I was just thinking about, and I like to bring these podcasts into something that is just like a little thing I learned over the weekend. So that's what I learned, and I'll get right into the podcast guest in a second. But first, just want to direct you to downdogathletics.com. If you haven't checked it out yet, we have blogs, podcasts, the updated 2.0 28-day plan if you are interested in having a training plan that you can adjust, that is customizable, that combines yoga and training and gives you a 4-day split, 5-day split, 3-day split, whatever it is that you're looking for, whatever equipment that you have, whatever skill level that you're at, it is something that you can customize to yourself. So go check that out, downdogathletics.com, and download your free 28-day plan. And today's guest is Drew Reagan. So know Drew through Lululemon. We've connected, trained at his gym several times, Impact, Strength, and Performance in Bellevue. And the guy's an awesome dude. And one of the reasons we connected right away is because I saw him as this big bodybuilder, powerlifting savage, but he also has this soft side. And he talks about that a lot, about his yoga practice and all the different healing therapies that he's into. And he's just a really cool dude with two sides to his and his energy and his personality. And so it was really cool to be able to go over to his gym, sit down with him, and have a conversation just about how yoga fuses with his training, what he does as a professional strength coach, and he works with a lot of different yoga instructors. So I think any yogis out there listening to this will find a lot of value in what he talks to, and I definitely recommend checking him out. If you're in the Seattle area, check out what he does at his gym. And without further ado, here we go, Drew Reagan. What up, Drew?
What's up, man?
Thanks for letting me stop by.
For sure, bud. Thank you.
Yeah. So you got a new carpet. That's been a funny thing to follow. For those of you who don't know, we're at Impact, Strength, and Performance in Bellevue, Washington. And tell us about the little journey that you had last few months.
Man. Well, I've been on many journeys. A big one, but one that happened recently was I had a flood the weekend before Christmas, and this beautiful aqua carpet that we are now sitting on was turf, and I've been here since 2012, and a pipe burst and the whole gym got flooded.
Yeah,
so that was the month of January. I was training in half the space and renting another gym out and just making moves, man. Like life throws stuff at you sometimes.
Absolutely.
But it was a nice metaphorical flood because it forced me to make some decisions that I've been putting off for a while. So
yeah,
it's all a gift.
Well,
in the end of it,
because I've heard you say that a lot of times, where you're like, this is a good thing. What was the first thing that you thought when it happened, and then how did you spin it into like, this is great?
Oh, first thing, man, was like, damn,
this is going to cost me a lot of money.
This is going to cost me some coin.
Yeah.
And I kind of laughed. It wasn't anything I could really do, other than like start just moving equipment out the gym and drying everything off. But just in terms of like what I feel compelled to continue to step into in my life and my work, like having been in fitness since 2008, and I love it. I love movement. I love helping people get in their body. But I want to continue to like explore the subtle body and like more breath work. And I've been really digging my yoga practice. So right now I create customized strength training programs for people who are trying to feel this sense of wholeness and alignment in themselves. So whether that be more yin-y postures or more strengthening postures, like where do we have some imbalances and how can we create like a strong structural human being?
Yeah.
So I love that shit, and I'm going to continue to do what I do. I just want to dive more of my energy into exploring some of the more therapeutic ends of the spectrum and how to, like, we help people heal.
Yeah, absolutely. Because there's so many different ways to heal people. Obviously, getting stronger is one, but there's the whole entire spiritual side, the mental side. It all comes together as one. And so I love that. That's a big part of your practice and a big part of your focus. But I want to go back to 2008 because you mentioned you've been in this for a while, and it was real more strength and conditioning focused. What initially got you into this industry?
I've been a gym rat since I was a young man. When I was in 8th grade and I was playing like pee-wee football, the high school that I went to was in the state championship, and those guys were like my idols. I wanted to be like the stud, quarterback or whatever. And so I was in the gym all the time, man, just like getting my reps in to the point where it was like all I did.
Yeah.
And so I loved just being in the gym since I was like 13, 14. And I graduated with my degree in psychology and business from Linfield College, played 4 years of football, ran track over there. And so being athletic has always been something that I did. And I knew that when I was graduating, like I couldn't see myself sitting behind a desk. And so I was like, I'll get my personal training certification from NASM while I figure out like what I want to do actually for a career.
Yeah.
And I just kept training. And I fell in love with it. And I enjoyed the opportunity to help people. In the beginning, just like move and sweat. You're just figuring it out. I'm reading like Men's Health magazines to figure out what the hell I'm doing, man.
Yeah, same.
And over time, like I thought I was going to go into physical therapy school and didn't know which like direction I was taking it. And after having trained for 3 years, I realized I was like 25, 26. I was like, man, I can open my own gym. And so like the way you do, man, just like hopping on the internets and like figuring it out, like what do we need to do to open up a gym? And so I hit up my homeboy Trav. Him and I were business partners for a long time when we opened this gym up. And we opened this gym 2012. And it was primarily more geared towards like athletic sports performance. So we trained a lot of middle school, high school, collegiate athletes, trained a few pros here and there. And then we had like a boot camp and some semi-private training for adults. And like over the course of the years, as I've continued to evolve and like incorporate new ways of being, like yoga really started speaking to me. So now I like train a lot of yogis who need to learn how to get in their body from a strength training perspective. So there's a lot of like hypermobile situations going on. And you see it like all the time and people doing their chaturangas or holding themselves in these positions that require like some stability and structure. They're just hanging on their joints. So how do I help someone like get into their body more fully? So one, they're not injuring themselves, but two, like you feel strong. There's like some empowerment, like naturally, that's like flowing through your DNA.
Absolutely.
So I love just helping people like, oh, there I am.
Yeah.
Just leaving like walking a little taller, like a little bit more swag in their step.
Yeah. I've always loved adding strength to the yoga practice because when you're not worried about holding a position, you're able to be in your body and in your mind more. Because if I'm straining to hold a lunge, I'm not thinking about like my breath. I'm thinking about my quads that are about to ignite into, a gas chamber. And so, I love that you incorporate the strength piece of it and that yoga's been part of that evolution. How has your coaching philosophy and approach really evolved over that time? The strength and conditioning, even just nutrition and overall health is always evolving. And what was cool or smart 10 years ago now, like you get laughed out of the gym doing, I feel like.
Well, I don't know. I'm like a learn by doing kind of guy.
Yeah.
So, and oftentimes I'm learning the hard way, so I for the longest time, just my way of being was like on the back of our sweatshirts that I see people still rock like out in the community. It's in the back, it said, work hard and be nice to people. And that was kind of like my MO and how I moved through the world. It's like I had a strong work ethic and I'm going to be kind to people. To the point though, where like I was working too hard and I was more focused and concerned about like appeasing other human beings and like keeping it real.
Yeah.
So like almost I took that motto like to the extreme in almost to like a fault, right? And I was burned out. And so really like yoga has like invited this opportunity for me to invite some softness into my practice where before I just thought like as a coach, to be like a good coach was to be like the baddest motherfucker like in the gym.
Yeah.
So I was competing in powerlifting for a while. I did the bodybuilding thing and like did a physique show, and I've explored like different ways of being in my body. I was on American Ninja Warrior in 2013.
No way. I didn't know that.
Yeah, like season 3, episode 1.
What was the specific part of the event that got you? Or did you complete it?
Oh no, dude, I ate shit.
Oh,
Yeah.
where?
Well, dude, I was like, a little context here.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Let's get it.
Like you send in the little videos. This is back in 2013. I think now it's like way more like tough to get in, like because it's become a thing and like culturally in the world where there's gyms that have been created specifically because of this show.
Yeah.
So like I just made like a rinky-dink video, posted it on YouTube of me like doing like a flip in Bridle Trails State Park right down the street and like doing some silly ninja stuff. And they called me up like, yo, bro, like come through. We'd love to have you. Tickets on you. We're not paying for shit. And, like just come down. I was like, all right, cool. My sister lived in Santa Monica where they were filming.
Yeah.
And they film in the middle of the night for production. So it's like on Venice Beach and there's all the smoke, but it was like kind of drizzling. So everything was super slippery, right? Mind you.
Yeah.
But, and some people, like if you see like the first thing, like they hop on and they grab like a little like flying squirrel, you know, those little ledges you got to bounce back and forth on. It's like the standard first thing. And I was like, dude, this is a ninja show. I'm going to act like a ninja. I'm not going to do that. So I hopped across, bang, 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 bang. And then the second thing, you had to wedge yourself into this like upside down like U.
Yep.
And I rode down a little track and it tries to like drop you into the water. Like you just got to hold yourself like in between.
Mm-hmm.
I did that. No problemo. And then the third thing looked like the easiest one. It was like a stack of like mattresses essentially that got taller.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone was just like tiptoeing across like little Mario Brothers style, like like no problem. And everyone was eating shit on the next thing. We had to jump on a trampoline and grab these like hanging nunchucks. Everyone was slipping off of them.
Tough.
And mind you, I was like 3 weeks out from my first like bodybuilding show, so I was stacked.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I felt so cool, and I was like 215 pounds, so it was like way bigger than all the other dudes. And I stepped on one of those mattresses and it's like boom. It just like completely flattened, and it was like so anticlimactic. I was on the thing for like 5 seconds and I was done before I I was so bummed.
That's what people don't realize about those is the ones that do really well are like rock climbers almost, where they look really strong but they're really 5'6", 140 pounds.
And they got some fast twitch too.
Yeah.
You know, they have like the elasticity in their tendons still, man, where they can like absorb and spring to the next thing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's funny. I didn't know you did that.
Yeah, not many people do. It's not something I
heard it here first.
Yeah, you heard it here first. Yeah,
that's great.
So I'm just saying, like, I've tried multiple things. Like, coming back to your original question of like how have you shifted really, and what I really enjoy now in terms of my body is one, feeling good, like not being in pain for so long, like try and be really, really strong in your powerlifting and squatting a lot and deadlifting a lot. Your joints start to just get so jacked up, man. And I was getting like these calcium deposits on my spine. Like I had like a stegosaurus hump like in between my shoulder blades from where I rested my barbell on my back, man. Yeah. And so like my yoga practice, I try and like break my heart open and like this kind of rejuvenate and hydrate my spine after it was getting so calcified, has been like liberating. Yeah. Not just in the way like I'm being in less pain, but like I can breathe. I didn't realize like I had put on so much muscle. I was like kind of constricting my ability to like fully take in like a whole breath. Yeah. I couldn't get into my upper lobes of my lungs because my shoulders had become internally rotated because my posture wasn't appropriate. I wasn't doing like the healthy amount of balance in my training. And like with breath comes like a letting go. And so the past 3 years, man, I've lost like 30, 40 pounds. And I'm like a different version of myself. Like I walk taller. I sleep better. I'm less anxious. I have more awareness of like almost all of my body. Whereas before, like so much of it was just, I had zero like ability to feel into that space. So like through the softening of my practice, I've become like way stronger. Yeah. You know, I'm not squatting like 500 pounds or anymore or anything like that, but like, okay. Great. Cool. Yeah.
There's always a bigger fish with the squatting.
Man. So I feel like way, I feel liberated. Yeah. You know, like my yoga practice it's tantrically rooted. So my school is called Rasa Yoga. My teacher's name is Greta Hill. And like one of the keystone like philosophies of Tantra is this concept of worldly fulfillment and spiritual liberation, right? In Sanskrit, it's called bhukti mukti. And where sometimes like in old school Patanjali, like yoga sutra style, it's like you overcome the body to become spiritually liberated. Whereas in Tantra, it's like, no, the body is like holy as well, right? So like it's an embodiment practice, right? It's not a like remove yourself away from, right? So how do we continue to like fully show up and live in our bodies and invite some softness and some strength and kind of find that middle path of worldly fulfillment and also like spiritual liberation, you know, like more we, not me.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. What was the catalyst for you turning to yoga?
Whew, man, a lot.
Yeah.
You know, I've been like putting on, so muscle was like really my mask.
Yeah.
You know, I had a lot of stuff going on. When I was young, that was scary. Just a chaotic environment growing up. And I wasn't really parented. And so I just kind of figured it out on my own. And being scared, my unconscious way of like dealing with it was lifting. And this was like, I was kind of protecting myself essentially. So I just like ingrained since a young age, like lift hard and go hard all the time. And that was kind of my way of like dealing with stress, to the point where like I'd put so much armor on, I had become very codependent in the way that I lived, and like didn't honestly have like a solid sense of who I was. And I realized like I was being dishonest. Like when you don't have a solid sense of self, man, like what do you stand for?
Right.
And if you're always busy trying to like please other people, or give off a pretend image, you know, eventually, man, like the house starts to crumble and fall down, man. And I was just lying. I realized like I was just lying all the time. And I was lying to myself about like what I needed, honestly.
Yeah.
And I had a child like during this time, man, where I was like moving into a space of like not really knowing what was going on. And like my kid was born, his name's River, and like my heart burst open.
Yeah.
Like you have, for me, like you have this understanding of what love is. And then you have a child, and there's this whole other layer and level of depth that like awoke in my being. And I realized I was scared as shit. And like really I was a kid, man. I felt like I was 30 years old and I had no idea what the fuck was going on. And I had to like check myself, man. I took a step back and you know, I'd hurt myself to like the 20th, like millionth time powerlifting. And so I couldn't move. And so I had a kid, me and his co-parent, his mom, like 3.5 years now, like are doing awesome as like co-parents. And like, but during that time it was stressful, man. Like having a child and being separated from, you know, the mother to your kid wasn't ideal. And having been in a relationship with this woman since I was essentially like in middle school, I didn't know how to be a human being outside of that relationship, you know? So I really like from the ground level had to figure out like who I was, what I stood for. And being a dad, like it's not what you say, it's what you do, right? And I didn't want to tell my kid like, yo man, you got to be true to yourself. Like that's a truism that you hear throughout eternity, man. Like you got to honor your heart. And I wasn't gonna be able to say that to my kid if I wasn't being real with myself. So like I had to kind of go back to square one and figure out who I was. And yoga was like stepped into my life at that time too. And there's a community called Bala Yoga that my friends have owned that was close to the home that I was living in Kirkland at the time. And I was showing up and I was just crying. I was just going on the mat and I'd be like halfway through a practice, man, and I'd just start crying and I'd lay down and just like let it go. And it was like the first time like the dam started to break. The dam originally broke when I had my child.
Yeah.
You know, like he was born and I was like kind of reborn straight up.
Right.
And like throughout the yoga practice, I was like starting to like feel. I'd put so much armor on, like I'd kind of close myself off to my heart and like my feelings. And it was scary as fuck, man. Like yoga was like definitely like a catalyst in my transformation. And I realized like it was really helping me. And I just felt like I had to learn more, man. I get into something and I'm going to go do it, you know? So I was a trainer, like I'm going to go get my CSCS.
Yep.
I'm going to get all the million different certifications and continue to prioritize my education and hire all the coaches and train my ass off, you know, because I want to be good at what I do. And so yoga has been like the same thing. And what's really nice about yoga, it's like a philosophy that's been around for thousands of years. Like there's no end to the depth
Right.
of like exploration.
It's a
Because
path.
because it's like really it's an exploration of self.
Mm-hmm.
So I just love getting into all the nooks and crannies, man, of like who I am.
Yeah.
And whether that be like talking about the geeky science behind respiration, or we're talking like the Bhagavad Gita, you know, there's like a million different paths that you can go on this journey of the quest to know like who you really are.
Yeah.
And so I just love sharing that experience with people.
Yeah. No, and that's one of the big reasons why I connected with you and why I wanted to come here, because that story, I love how you articulated where the dam broke open and you were reborn, and then you have a child who needs to lean on you and you need to be able to support them, but at the same time it almost sounded like you were dependent on other things, and so you needed to like figure out how to stand tall yourself.
Totally, man.
And I always come to the analogy with self-awareness as a tree, where the more self-awareness you have, the more rooted you are into the earth, but also into your confidence. And so when things come, you're able to absorb the hurricane or absorb the storms because you know who you are. Well, at the same time, you got that like that small little tree that needs help from kind of like, you know, tomatoes. This is all coming like randomly, but tomatoes, you got that.
I'm into it, man.
You got that. You got that metal pole that they use to climb up and to grow on.
Okay, I feel it.
But what I love, again, what you talk about is just the importance of self-awareness and how like that confidence comes in through that and knowing who you are in that journey. Because it is a path, you know, the upaya, right? You use a path, and you never get anywhere. There's no destination.
Yeah.
But it's just the continual like process of getting to know who you are, and that's always going to change too, which makes it fun.
So fun, man. I mean, there's like the Taoist, you know, this idea like the goal is the process, just as much as the process is the goal, right? So it's like the way to do is to be. So like arriving each moment with your breath and like, okay, like how can I continue to show up more fully? And what, you know, steps do I need to like go backwards here, and like when do I need to surrender and when do I push forward, and just knowing like how to create that sense of equanimity despite like what's happening in the world.
Yeah.
And it's a path, man. Like everyone gets, we're human.
Yeah.
You know, so there's plenty of room for grace and fuck ups for sure.
For sure.
So it's been exciting, man. It's been scary. You know, like yoga also like helped me realize like I need some help, and so I went and like got some therapy.
Yeah.
And huge advocate for like finding your person to talk to, whether it be talk therapy or like somatic based, you know, therapy, where you have like Peter Levine or Bessel van der Kolk style, like where you learn to shake it off.
Yeah.
You know, like we carry this tension in our bodies, man. So
Have you read The Body Keeps Score?
Yes.
Yeah. It was a really powerful book for me.
Yeah, and I've done like trauma release exercise. You know, I've like explored all these different ways of like physical inhabitants, and so now, man, as I continue to grow in my profession, like this person's coming and there's like a lot of trapped energy here.
Right.
There's a lot of tension in these places. So how can we open that up? And just like that tree or that tomato plant, like how can we get that thing deeply rooted and like really open and long at the same time?
Absolutely. I love the Bessel van der Kolk, that book, just because it, more than any other book, opened my eyes to how things are and how much of a role your childhood plays, how much of a role trauma. It doesn't have to be this massive trauma. It could be little micro traumas. And I always equate it to, I sprained my ankle training or at practice. Well, that's going to affect how my body moves and that movement pattern. Well, someone says something to me and I internalize that, put it on a loop. That's going to affect how my brain thinks about things. Right? It's patterns,
and
thought
what your
patterns,
body
movement
believes too.
patterns.
Like your body doesn't know
Absolutely.
the difference, man.
And so you're storing that. And so that book was super powerful for me. And, you know, just the biggest thing that I always come to is like, you never know where someone's at, right? You can see that you got a ton of muscle. You can see someone walking that's 6'10", but you don't know where they've been that day. And so just trying to approach people with more empathy and kindness, right? First thing I noticed from you is just how kind you are and how gentle you are. And, you know, I think the world needs more of that.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like we urgently need to slow down.
Yeah.
And I love productivity and kicking each day in the ass, and making it your bitch or whatever,
Yeah.
like, um, and chill out.
Yeah.
Like, we got to slow down here. Like, our Earth, like, we got to start thinking a little bit more long term here because, um, like, the biggest issue of our generation and probably the next several generations is like, how do we restore the planet?
Yeah.
We've been so focused on consumption, I guess being like a consumer society. Um, we're consuming all the resources, and we're also consuming the internal resources of our energy pool, So from a Chinese standpoint, man, like
Yeah.
everyone's exhausted.
Yeah.
Like adrenal fatigue, people are drying up like weathered little plants here, right? So like through the practice of yin yoga and like rejuvenating the spine, like we can begin to flourish again and like start to feel healthy. And a lot of that process of like feeling healthy is people just need to chill out.
Yeah. I want to come back to what you talked about a little bit earlier with just breathing properly. And when you are so big and maybe you have so much stress, whether that's through life or through your job, or maybe you have so much muscle and it affects how your rib cage can move and how much air your lungs can take in.
Mm-hmm.
Like how much of a game changer is that? Not only from a training perspective, but from recovery and a life perspective. And I know how important it is to get parasympathetic and making that a priority with different inputs through massage or spa or playing with like like being like a child. But like from your perspective, how has breath played a role in what you do with clients and what you do with yourself?
Yeah. Well, for me, like I didn't realize like my entire life I've been kind of fighting for like my breath. Like I had like very significant asthma when I was little, and like had the like the ventilation machine that I would have to like
Oh, so not
like
just the
smoke
little
on.
squirter,
No, man,
like
the nebulizer is what that shit was called.
oh man,
And so like me and like Nickelodeon were homies from the ages of like 5 to like 14, man, because I was on that thing like a couple hours a night normally, just watching my Nickelodeon. I think I got turned into like MTV when I got little more in the teenage years, man, but yeah. And I was just stressed, like my mom like had her stuff going on. She died when I was little, and I just was tight, man. I carried a lot of tension.
Yeah.
And so like I didn't even realize it was unconscious. And when you're constricted, man, like you can't take a deep breath ever. And I remember when I would take some deep breaths and how like nourishing that felt. If I was able to feel like I was able to get my my breath up to my ears, like a really full deep inhale where you get the upper lobes of your lungs like really fully capacitated. That would happen like maybe once in a blue moon.
Yeah.
And now like being able to do it just at will,
Subconsciously even.
dude, yeah, it's the most significant like change in my life, because with that exhale is like a releasing of tension and energy too. I didn't realize I was always holding my breath. I was kind of like bracing for impact all the time. And when you take energy in constantly, you start becoming a little bit more heady and disassociated from the body because you're inhaling and getting it up into the head. So I was like an overthinker to the millionth degree.
Yeah.
And very disassociated from my body as well, like so tight and stiff and like lack of control. Even like in my pelvic continence, I was like I was aging. Like I was so stiff I didn't have awareness in like my like lower half essentially. And like being an athlete, it was weird too, because I was able to like lift and do all these things, but still feel like I didn't have like an ability to feel myself like on the ground. Was just kind of weird.
Yeah.
Cut off. So if I've learned to like exhale and let go can be triggering, but just let things be and not try and control everything. I'd always have this recurring nightmare growing up, man, of me like gripping, like white knuckling a steering wheel of a car, and I couldn't control it.
Do you still have that?
No. And I'd have night terrors. I'd wake up, because I wasn't breathing.
Yeah.
And I was scared, man. Like, what's that Joseph Campbell quote? Like, the cave you fear to enter is,
I know what you're talking about.
The cave that like holds your most sacred treasure.
Yeah.
Right? And I had all this stuff that I'd never dealt with that was from my childhood. And so like my therapy allowed that to come out.
Yeah.
And I learned to breathe again. I was seeing like a somatic therapist who was like putting hands on me and like showing me how to breathe. Wim Hof pranayama has been like a game changer for me. And I've had like some, with breath work sometimes, man, like your nervous system gets like reset. And so like my whole body would be shaking. and I'd be freezing cold, even though it'd be like 90 degrees outside, crying. And just like getting that shit out the nervous system has been like huge.
Yeah.
And so just being able to breathe, man, and relax has been like, I'm like restoring my jing, my kidney jing, like in Chinese medicine, like my powerhouse of energy here. So I'm feeling like more nourished. Skin's like clearing up, sleep better.
Yeah. The sleep is the one that I notice the most is people that I'll either work with or myself is when you got a bunch of things running through your mind and you're like, I got to do all this work tomorrow and I cannot sleep and I'm not breathing during that time. And it's like, hey, write it down and then just 4 seconds in, 4 seconds out. Then go up to
that box
5.
breath, man. Yeah.
Then, and it all starts with the breath. But yeah, that's the biggest thing that I noticed just as I've, in the last few years, done my journey through self-discovery, through yoga, meditation, and journaling is how much better I've slept and how it's allowed me to respond rather than react. Because when you react, you just get that chain reaction of elevation of stress, whether it's you're working or you're communicating with someone else or it's just all up in your head. It just keeps kind of like the
compounds
in the movies where that powder, right? It's getting closer to that explosive TNT. You just got to cut it off with the breath.
Great analogy.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's that Viktor Frankl quote. Have you read Man's Search for Meaning before?
No, it's on my short list, though.
Dude, it's a short book, man. It's like you can read it in a day.
That's why it's on my short list.
Okay.
Short books.
I only read short books. No, and I'm going to butcher this quote, too, like I butchered the other ones I've been trying to say, like, the entire time. But, like, in between stimulus and response, there is a space. And in that space is our freedom to choose.
Yeah.
So, like, that's what this is, man. Like, with your breath, you recognize the space between, like, the pause between the inhale and the exhale.
Yeah.
And when things are thrown at you, like, how do you, wax on, wax off, man, and keep it moving?
Absolutely. I'm listening to Crucial Conversations right now.
Oh, yeah.
And
cool.
it has a similar concept where if I'm speaking and then someone laughs, I don't instantly get angry just because that's not an automatic reaction. In between that space is a little tiny loop that I use to make sense of what's going on. But what you're talking about is like when you have in that little space of what's happening and your response to it is like that default response of like, I'm going to take a deep breath or I'm going to like look at this and like detach from the situation or something to that effect so that you can be in a little bit more control with also not being in control and detaching.
Yeah. Control is like is a funny word.
Yeah.
Right. Like how, like, cause you want to have stability and feel safe.
Right.
And at the same time, like you can't control everything, so you try and be like a river. All right. You got to like, you flow where you got to flow, man. And you're strong where you got to be strong. But
I was thinking about that analogy just the other day with how like the ocean is the most powerful thing. And if you heat it up, it's like, fine, I'll go evaporate and turn into clouds. And then you want to freeze it. It's like, great, I'll turn into this rock solid ice. But like, you can't beat me up. I'm just going to be formless and adapt to whatever it is that you need me to adapt to. And so I think that's a really cool analogy.
Yeah. Like that be like water.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah.
Well, then you got River, your kid, so.
Exactly, man. And that was like before I even got into all this like yogic pathway, Chinese medicine, interest in my life in exploring subtle body energy and looking at like the rivers or the nadis, the energy channels. And River was a name that my mom loved. And River's mom and I, like, she was the one who remembered actually. And was like, oh yeah, no brainer. And we thought we were going to have a girl and we found out we were having a boy. We're like, huh. We had the girl's name figured out for like years.
Yeah.
When the boy came, we're like, oh damn. All right, well.
It's River.
Yeah. And he's been like, like he broke open my heart, man.
Yeah.
That's what a river does. Like it
breaks through the dam.
Breaks right through the dam, man. Yeah, exactly.
I love that. Do you think that, this is thinking into the future, there's obviously the industry of strength and conditioning and athletes and getting stronger, bright powerlifting, like there's all those different niches. And then you have like the Eastern medicine and philosophy and all this stuff that is very yin and yang. Do you think we'll start to see a convergence of that, or is it going to take a little bit more time?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I think that's like my favorite area to explore are the confluence of those two rivers, of like where East is meeting West, and looking at, the way that we tend to explain the world through science on like the Western end of the spectrum, and then also not that the East doesn't do that, but like from an Eastern like spiritual medicine perspective, like these practices, acupuncture has been around for thousands of years, as has the yoga practice.
Mm-hmm.
And there's people who are flourishing as a result of these practices and have like an attunement to their own internal harmony, and they're able to be their own doctor because they're in tune with the seasons and recognize that like essentially we are nature.
Right.
So the more we are able to tune into our own inner nature, we can be in accordance with the outer nature of what's going on in our community and in our world. And that has to happen. And I feel like, honestly, like yoga, especially like a yin practice where you slow down, can save the world, because we'll tap into our own inner nature. And once we get into like the wilderness of our heart, we realize like we are fucking just devastating the actual wilderness of, you know, our world.
Yeah.
So it needs to happen fast.
Yeah.
And so like podcasts like this, man, and the work that you're doing, and there's so many cool people in our area that are like doing some awesome like earth stewardship and also like, you know, healing work with human beings. It's like really cool to see what's happening like out in the world now. And at the same time, like just the way the universe, as much good stuff is going on, there's an equal amount of like just bullshit.
Yeah.
And so how do we continue to just tilt the scale in the favor of, you know, the future generation? Because we don't necessarily inherit the world from our parents. We're only borrowing it from our children. So like we got to start thinking about like a little bit more long-term perspective here and stop being so nearsighted in how we move and make decisions and live.
Absolutely. I always feel like awareness, if there was one thing that everyone could benefit from, it to be more awareness. And then when I think of practices or ways to achieve that, first thing I come to is yoga, and that's why I'll always have it be a pillar into what I teach, because the more you can be aware of your impact on the environment, your impact on other people, your impact on yourself, and really where all that stems from, and how you go out into the world, right? It's the hardest thing to do, though. No one wants to take the flashlight and go into the dark room in the scary movie and see what's in the corner, but that's where all of that.
That's where the gold is.
That's where the gold is, right? And you might find stuff that you don't like, but at the same time, like that's where the chain is anchored. And until you go there with that awareness, like you can't create the change that is necessary. Where when you snowball all that, then that's when like forests no longer get cut down, because someone's like, oh, I'm just going to be a little bit more conscious because I'm aware.
Yeah, and just having the space and ability to have the luxury of having the practice to slow down and breathe.
Yeah.
Right? Because like with the way that we live and what's just kind of been sold to us as this is how the world exists, it's like a rat race.
Right.
And if we're constantly just trying to go, like we don't take the time to actually explore these parts of ourselves. And when you're thinking about it from like a place of impoverishment, you know, and looking at like human or like transpersonal psychology, like looking at Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs, like the base of the pyramid of the foundation for like a human being to feel healthy is like, first of all, like, do they have the resources to, you know, do they have a home?
Yep.
Do they have access to clean water, food? Do they have a community around them? And then it's like, okay, do they have healthy, you know, self-esteem? Do they have the ability to communicate and like have interaction that helps people feel safe and secure? And then we start getting into like some of these higher aspects of like self-awareness and self-actualization. But if you're not having your base needs met, man, it's like it's hard to go into that space of self-awareness. And when you have this like growing disparity between ultra wealthy and, you know, people below the poverty line, it's like it's hard to wake up if you're or it's hard to thrive if you're surviving.
Right.
You know? So like how do you like you got to have the opportunity to be able to wake up in the first place, you know? So there's like everything needs to shift.
Yeah, no, and
know,
that brings me to kind of like the balance between it all, because as much as like I am is a mantra, there's also the reality of like I can say I am enough, but if I ran a 3:01 marathon and the cutoffs were 3 minutes, like I am not enough. And so there is this degree to like slowing down, but you also still need to, like you said, make sure you're taking care of all the things that you need to take care of.
Oh yeah, man.
To be able to still afford to slow down.
Totally. I mean, be about your money,
you
know, and like support yourself, support your family, and like contribute in a positive way. And competition's fun.
Yeah.
You know, like yoga, it's like playing your edge. This ain't some soft shit. Like you go for it a lot of the time in a practice, and it's challenging and it's really hard, and people overdo it all the time and hurt themselves. So like you want to play the edge, but not fall off the cliff.
Right.
And you can play the edge on the hard end of the scale. You can also play the edge on the end of the soft end of the scale, you know? And so you find like, you know, both ends of the spectrum, and you continue to move forward in the direction of like what you're here to do. So like you were running that High Rocks
Race
event
coming up.
Dude, that's some badass stuff, you know? So you can still be like super strong and like bout your business and make your money. And you can also, like, as a man, like, be soft on the inside too, and have some emotional capacity to like check yourself. Because if you're in connection with yourself more fully, it's easier to connect with like your loved ones and your people, and you can really show up and be present. And that's when you're powerful.
Right.
So like you're more powerful as you soften.
Right.
Because you have the opportunity to actually be in integrity, because you're taking the time to get to know yourself. And now it's like your gifts are really like fully available.
Yep.
So I think as a man, it's necessary to change the concept of what masculinity is as just like hard as fuck, and any idea of softness, you're a pussy.
Right.
And
well, you have hard as fuck, and then you have softness, and it's like the people have the hard as fuck stuff figured out, but it's the vulnerability piece that you're talking about, where it's like when you show your deepest layer, then you're actually able to connect at the deepest level.
Yeah, and that's it's scary, and again, like you need to have the tools available to be able to do those things, because it can be triggering,
right?
You know, and tough. So it's like I've been thankful and fortunate enough to be in a community where I had people who were able to receive me, help me, love me, my teachers, my therapists, my family. You know, I'm blessed.
Yeah.
I'm blessed. And so like being able to have that support while going through all that stuff, because I got super depressed, man. I had like no mojo. Couldn't get out of bed, and I'm like trying to show up at a gym, teach people how to move, and be like Mr. Show Up. And you know, I was always performing, man. I've been performing my entire life. I didn't even realize it, and like I was just fucking tired of it. Couldn't do it anymore. And it sucks.
Yeah.
You know, but there is like it's like Phoenix from the ashes, though, man. But you need that necessary time to be in the ashes and allow yourself to grovel and grieve and cry and do all the shit. And at the same time, you still got to show up and be a dad, or provide for your family, you know. So there's all the expectations too. That's like tough in Western culture of like what it means to be a man, because you're supposed to be everything.
Right.
And I'm not saying that like women don't have it hard. I'm not complaining or saying any of that shit at all, because like this is the patriarchy, you know. And as a white man in the Northwest, man, I got all the chips in my fucking favor, and I recognize like the privilege that I have, and I love the opportunity to connect with men like you who are showing up and demonstrating that like, yo, you can be strong, you can be an athlete, and at the same time like take the time to get to know who you are. And it's like it's very powerful.
Yeah. Well, to that point where I agree, there's so many things where there's chips stacked in our favor, but then I almost feel like I need to do everything that I can to help people with that. And so by creating this platform where like two guys who work out and are all about the business can also still go and talk about things that are really vulnerable, like that's where I feel like we have that opportunity to show other guys, be like, yo, you can still be jacked or strong or cool or whatever it is that you think you need to be, while also being this other side too, the soft and
just being human,
hard.
You know, like we come from what is that?
That's the outro. So
we're done?
No, we're good though.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, we'll just keep that in.
Right on, man. That's fresh. That was nice.
I was waiting for a rap.
Like,
Drew was rapping
I'm
before
ready.
all of this,
I'm ready.
and that was his cue. I forgot to give it to him.
Man. All right. Well, my fault.
Oh,
Dropped
good.
the mic on that one. No, like we come from our mom and our dad.
Right.
And yes, I'm a man. I self-identify as like a man.
Yep.
And also like I have to recognize like the feminine qualities in me.
Yeah.
And that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Like that is what it is, and just having the opportunity to know those things about you are important. And I don't feel like I need to help. If I just continue to show up, and like be honest with myself, hopefully I can just foster relationships where people get to know who they are, and like it's like a pay it forward type of thing, man. Because for a long time I kind of had this like rescuer situation, like trying to save people. And often, like times, people who are trying to save everyone else are the actual ones who need the saving. And so again, like being cool with not being able to help everyone either. You know, it's not my responsibility. Like my responsibility is to like sing my song. Like here's my message. This is what I'm gonna do.
Yeah, definitely.
Be about my business, and like, be a good dad, like connect with cool dudes like you, and try and make this world like fun, man. Like this, what a gift.
Yeah.
There's so much bullshit, but like, what are you gonna do with it, man? So
True.
yeah, it is what you make of it, man. 100%.
Cool. Few personality questions before we wrap up. I like to always end with these. So we're in a gym. I know you're about to bust some tunes, but if you got one song, what's that song that you're gonna play?
Oof. In the gym?
Like any song, like the ultimate song. You're like,
Man, ultimate track. That's tough. There's like some island soul in my heart.
Okay.
I always tell people, I think like my former life, I was like a Jamaican matriarch.
There we go.
I don't know if that's legit or not, but that's like what I feel in my DNA. I love Steel Pulse.
Okay.
Like there's a song called Your House. I want to live in your house, your house. I want to live in. You know that one?
We're going to get that going right after this.
Yeah, dude. It's real nice.
Okay, cool. Favorite, like, you got one meal. What's that meal you're going to mash?
Damn, these are great questions. It's either like I'm with my boys and it's like burger, beer.
Yeah.
Sweet potato fries.
Is it a specific kind of burger, mushroom, like spicy pepper jack?
Oh, yeah, man. Put an egg on there.
Ooh.
Put 2 patties, grass-fed, like humanely raised cow, please.
Yes.
All right. And or bison. Bison's yummy too, man.
Okay, so burger and beer though.
Burger and beer, or I'll go like 2 glasses red wine. I'll go like some nice halibut. I'm doing red wine with halibut. I know that's a little like not for everyone's
That's all right.
vibe here. Some sauteed greens, and like a really like awesome like rosemary like focaccia roll of bread. It's like with like hella butter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Halibut guy. Pacific Northwest dude.
What's
for
up?
sure. Okay, last one. Movie.
Oh, man, this is like so cliche, but it's been my movie since I was like a boy. But dude, every time it's on, I'll watch it for 10 minutes. I'll start crying, and it's just like I feel like a fucking champion when I get done watching it too. But Forrest Gump, man.
Ooh.
Forrest Gump.
That's a good one. Did you ever go to the Bubba Gumps around the country?
I've been to one. I was like, man,
Oh man,
this is ruining Forrest Gump for me.
my dad is obsessed with it. I've probably been to
With Bubba
10.
Gumps.
Yeah, we'll go, and at the end they always ask the questions to us, like trivia, and my dad will be like, all right, I got some questions for you.
Oh, really?
He'll ask the waiters or
That's
waitresses,
amazing.
and then he'll stump them, and he'll walk out like, Forrest Gump, like, I'll just be
That's
so
great.
pumped. Yeah.
I respect your father immensely.
Yeah,
That's great.
Forrest Gump, that's a good one. I got to whip that out. Cool, Joe. Well, thank you so much, man, for
Dude,
taking the
yeah,
time
thank
to let
you,
me
man.
come over and have this conversation.
Appreciate you, man. Thank
Yep.
you.
Before I let you go, just want to say thank you so much for listening to today's podcast. Be sure to check out Drew Soul-Centered Strength on social media and tag us to let us know that you're listening. If you enjoyed the podcast, I'd appreciate it if you leave a 5-star rating and review on iTunes. Helps us grow the podcast so that we can get other cool people on and just continue to evolve this message of having 2 sides to you, really focusing on the mental health while also still being a savage. Still lift some weights, still train, still compete and all those things, but you got to train the mind too as well. Last thing I'll say is if you are in the Seattle area, stay safe, avoid that coronavirus. You don't want that. I don't want that. Nobody wants that. So just be smart. Wash your hands. Give yourself a little song to sing or something, 20, 30 seconds. And, yeah, take care, fam. Catch you next time on the Down Dog Athletics Podcast.